Hey everyone. So yeah, this was in essence the penultimate chapter where everything we knew about the incident of Harald's death is finally reaching its conclusion, with Emu finally making his move by taking control of Harald. Of course, the bigger part to talk about with this is that while fighting back Emu's control, Harald orders his men to release Loki from his cell, and that right there is the most damning, vindicating moment of the entire flashback, because it reveals, I guess, what we already knew all along from the moment Emu made his presence known in this flashback, which is that Harald wanted Loki to kill him, to stop him from doing something he would live on to regret had Emu gotten his way. Now, the biggest question mark for me in this chapter is Jaru, and how much did he know about what happened that day? Because on one hand, it is fairly easy to assume he would believe the idea that Loki would kill Harald in cold blood given the chaotic turbulence of the situation, and yet I find myself wondering now if that was if Gerald truly was fully ignorant of the circumstances, or if he had some kind of idea or indication or just some kind of feeling deep down that something was wrong about this whole situation, and he just knew that something that if something what had happened here. It wasn't just like, it wasn't just Harald being plain evil, or if Gerald did in fact know, then that just begs the question of why he didn't speak up about it. And the only thing that does make sense is it was to preserve the image of Harald being of Harald's image to the public eye of being this wise, noble, and peaceful king. Because I think the idea is if people knew what had happened, it wouldn't I wouldn't say it would tarnish Harald's reputation, but it would cause, I think the fear was it would cause the people of Elbaf to take, in order to rise up and to take up arms again against the government, against Emu. And that would be, and that would be counterintuitive to what Harald was trying to teach. The idea of peace, the idea of pursuing a different path for the giants, and by rising up, it would just confirm everything that the government had been saying about them, and it would cause them to fall right into the government's trap. And I think that's kind of, and I think in some ways that's kind of what the conclusion that basically that Jaru himself probably drew, which is why he's probably kept it under wraps. Again, this is assuming Gerald knew what happened that day, but we won't know for sure until probably next chapter, which, granted, is going to be a couple weeks away, but still, yeah. And and you know what? I'll even go a step further though and say I wouldn't be surprised if Loki basically intentionally fell to the sword basically after all this. Like he willingly allowed himself to be branded a traitor in order to preserve Harald's memory. And if that itself is also the case, Loki truly is the fallen hero of this story. Like, this man sacrificed everything for his father and his people, and no one knows what truly happened. That even more than Harald's death this is one of the greatest tragedies of this whole thing in a lot of ways. Of course, to compound the tragedy of this whole situation even more, this chapter really hammers that emotional nail home by continuing to show us Harald's hopes and dreams for Elbaf's future. That they were the same, a shared hope and dream he had with Ida. So to see that hope and optimism for the future ripped away from him in a single moment, it really does make you wonder. Was this truly the only route? Were there no other options for Harald to explore of the potential of thousands of possibilities and scenarios to explore? Was Harald's decision to ally with the government in the way he did the only route available to him? But then that's also one of those things that's where you're forced to remember that the world government is the sole power in the world. Even if those thousands of other options existed, they would have made sure they were the only option. And I think more than any other, that basically is in one of the biggest tragedies of this all, is that there were no other options for the Giants. It was just that one option. And but also more than any other time in the series before, I think this flashback has really demonstrated just how strong the government's iron grip is on the world government, yet simultaneously exposing their greatest blind spot and weakness. The Giants, I think more than any other race that the government has either subjugated or attempted to wipe out from existence, I genuinely believe the government fears the Giants more than any other race in the world, because they fear them to be the ones who can shift the balance of power despite their current objective of just wanting peace. And I think this really does show Oda is setting up Elbaf to find that balance in the world of pushing for peace but still fighting to make it happen. And I think that's very much what is going to be happening here in a lot of what is going to be happening, but by basically that's the conclusion the Giants are going to come to, but by basically the end of this. And yeah, obviously this chapter told us what we also already knew, that the contract that was absolute bullshit, was absolute dog shit. But once again, it's one of those things that begs the question, how are we supposed to defeat Emu? Because we're constantly being shown that Emu is a being with absolute power and control, but what are the origins of that power? Where does it come from? Who are we supposed to... How are we supposed to fight against this? Because if Luffy's power of the Sun God is the only trump card we have, then I have a feeling we're in for a very rough ride. The only thing I take a bit of solace in is the idea that Haki seems to be Emu's biggest, like the Elders, Haki seems to be Emu's biggest weakness, but it has to be strong enough to do anything major as well. Like, it's one of those situations where there's a path forward to defeating Emu, but it's a path that is, it requires a lot of growth and a lot of strength in a lot of areas, and it's about whether or not our allies are strong enough in that area in order to be of true help in stopping all this madness. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe from in Blue Sky, and unless Crunchyroll, push the notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share the room, guys. Dark Knight, signing off. Later, everyone.